I thank our Prime Minister for his insightful statement, and now I give the floor to the Ministry of Planning of Colombia, Luis Fernando Mejia. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
His Excellency Andrej Babiš, Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, special salute and recognition for your country's outstanding leadership in the promotion and implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Her Excellency Amina Mohamed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, we all admire you for your very resolute compromise with the SDGs since their initial formulation stages. I especially wish to thank you for your support to the Colombian process. We had the honor to have Amina in Colombia in 2015 when we launched our National SDG Commission. His Excellency Miroslav Lajčák, President of the UN General Assembly, a very close friend to our government, thank you very much for your important support by accompanying us in Bogota just 10 days ago during the launch of the Colombian SDGs White Paper, which I will refer to later. His Excellency Martin Stropnický, Minister of Foreign Affairs, my most sincere and special regards to you for hosting us today, and to the team of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who have supported us in all regards and have made this visit possible. Thank you very much. Her Excellency Maria Chatardová, Ambassador and President of the ECOSOC, special thanks for the organization of this event, for having personally flown to Bogota to extend this invitation, and particularly for your outstanding results on leadership as President of the ECOSOC. His Excellency Jaime Alberto Cabal, Colombian Ambassador to Czech Republic and Austria. And last but not least, my dear wife Margaret, thank you very much for being here. It has been a true honor for Colombia to work hand in hand with the Czech Republic, and we can only but celebrate this friendly and strategic partnership that has brought so much value to both other countries. Colombia is the 31st largest economy in the world with a population of 50 million people. It distinguishes itself by a long-standing tradition of economic stability, evidenced by the fact that, for example, Colombians have seen just 3 years of negative growth in more than a century. The government has never defaulted on its debt in modern economic history, and the economy has not experienced a single episode of hyperinflation, a common malaise in Latin American economies. Unfortunately, investment, employment, and economic growth were held back by the war against the FARC, the longest-standing conflict in the Western Hemisphere. With this in mind, under the leadership of President and later Nobel Prize winner Juan Manuel Santos, the government embarked in peace talks with this guerrilla movement, the FARC, on 2012, a 5-year process which successfully culminated in June 2017 when the FARC ceased to be an armed group, handing over its weapons to the United Nations. As a result, the FARC are now a political party running for Congress, and just 2 weeks ago, we had the more peaceful elections in more than 50 years. Both our studies and independent research have estimated that peace will bring about additional growth of about 1% per year, with agriculture and tourism standing to benefit the most. With potential output growth at about 3.5 per year, such an increase implies that income will double every 15 years, 5 years faster than it would take without peace. Alongside the great news in the peace front, Colombia has made great economic and social progress during this decade. With an agenda of inclusive and sustainable growth, the poverty rate has fallen from 40% of the population to 26.9% during the past 8 years. And the extreme poverty rate was cut in half, from 14% to 7% of the population, lifting 4.8 million people out of poverty and 2.8 million out of extreme poverty during this period. At this rate, Colombia will have eradicated extreme poverty by 2030. On the environmental agenda, even though Colombia contributes less than 0.5% with total greenhouse gas emissions, it has suffered great economic and life losses from climate change-related disasters. For instance, La Niña episode during 2010 was estimated to cost around 2% of GDP, affecting 14% of the primary road network, more than 500,000 houses, leading to more than 1,300 deaths. And climate change will continue to do so. According to our third national communication, by 2040, temperatures could rise by 0.9 degrees Celsius, and precipitation could decrease between 10% and 40% in almost 30% of our territory. Adapting to climate change will decrease the impacts of this phenomena and could avoid average annual losses estimated at about 0.5% of GDP. As a result, Colombia has moved decisively on several fronts. First, President Santos made a pledge in COP21 in Paris of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 20% by 2030, involving specific compromises by all sectors of the economy. Second, we have created or strengthened the necessary public entities for adapting to and mitigating climate change, including a National Adaptation Agency and a National Climate Change Committee. Third, a recent tax reform introduced a carbon tax and a plastic bags tax, which are collecting $200 million per year, with the proceeds being directed towards reforestation and restoration of water bodies. All these efforts are being pursued under the umbrella of an all-encompassing agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals. Back in Rio 2012, Colombian government officials participated decisively in the idea of a more ambitious agenda with economic, social, and environmental objectives, with the inclusion of both developing and developed economies. To continue with this leadership in the 2030 Agenda, Colombia was the first country in the world to include the SDGs in its National Development Plan back in 2015. Our last effort in this direction was the recent approval by the President and all cabinet members of an SDG white paper. This policy document, which was publicly consulted, defines 16 main targets, one for each goal, with quantitative measures that allow for prioritizing government and private efforts as well. For instance, in goal number 1, no poverty, we set multidimensional poverty as the main target. This poverty measure goes beyond income measures, focusing instead in access to health, education, housing, formal employment, and child well-being. In this sense, we regard this measure as more structural. Colombia's multidimensional poverty rate stood at 30% of the population in 2010, stands now at 17%, and should lie below 8.4% by 2030, according to the target set in this white paper. The document also defined regional targets with the purpose of leaving no one behind, thereby closing regional gaps and empowering local authorities with specific responsibilities in this global agenda. This is an important way for motivating participation at the territorial level. We have also launched a public platform so that every citizen can learn about each target and monitor its progress. In this platform, we intend to push forward a portfolio of projects to leverage private and international involvement and investment. Without sound financing from multiple sources, no country will be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and targets. Finally, I would like to conclude with how participation has been key in building trust between the government and local communities, especially those at municipalities that were highly affected by the armed conflict. With the objective of closing socioeconomic gaps, we are building with local communities what we have called territorial-focused development plans. Bringing together the peace, SDG, and climate change agenda, projects are being identified and prioritized at the local level, then aggregated at the regional level, and presented nationally as a portfolio for projects for public and private investment. This, combined with innovative measures like tax breaks for new companies that are creating these mainly rural communities, and tax deductions for large companies that want to invest in projects from that portfolio, are creating the right conditions for the advancement of inclusive growth and the Sustainable Development Agenda. Colombia has put in place 4 pillars for achieving this agenda: political willingness, policy priorities, financing vehicles, and participation. Although challenges still lie ahead, we believe Colombia, alongside other countries like the Czech Republic, have started to build a more prosperous and sustainable society on the solid foundation of these 4 pillars. We certainly hope all countries within their national priorities will embark in this critical world agenda. The time to act for current and future generations has come. We must do so without hesitation. Thank you very much.